Good morning. Lesson 1-6, convert customary measurement units. Use ratio reasoning to convert between customary units of measurement. This is a pretty normal thing. Sometimes you're not going to have Google right next to you and you're going to need to do some kind of conversion, but also it's just good knowledge to have some of the basic conversions in your head. Is it helpful to know there's 5,280 feet in a mile? Maybe not for everyone, but if you are a civil engineer, yeah, you will definitely remember that number as you work through your career. So this is a good page to mark in your workbook because it has this here and you'll reference it later in this module. Each relationship listed in the table is a ratio relationship. 1 foot equals 12 inches. This equal sign could also be our little colon, which means ratio. Because there are 12 inches for every 1 foot, the relationship between number of inches and number of feet is a ratio relationship that can be written 12:1 or 12:1. A unit ratio. This is a big deal. Later, we will call this a unit rate. And it means per 1. And you have probably already seen and heard me say that in previous lessons. Per 1. That means your last number, your second number is 1. Like inches to feet, 12:1. Unit rate. They're great for conversions because this one's a 1 and working from 1, a little easier. Feet to yards, 3 feet to 1 yard, and feet to miles. Okay, and so then we can fill this in. What unit ratio can you use to represent the relationship between ounces and pounds? So we want to know the number of ounces to 1 pound. So let's look up on our chart. Ounces. Boom. 1 pound, 16 ounces. What unit ratio can you use to represent the relationship between pints and quarts? How many pints equals 1 quart? Up here, looking for a quart. There's a quart equals 2 pints. And what unit ratio can you use to represent the relationship between feet and miles? So 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Later, you're going to have to know this, so we're just going to put it here. There are 1,760 yards in a mile. How did I get that? You take this, divide by 3. It's applying this relationship to it. Okay? But you're going to need that. I can almost promise you. All right, example 1, again, uses a bar diagram. I can explain that to you if you want. I'm going to show you the non-bar diagram way. Marco needs to mix half a gallon of fertilizer with some soil before planting his tulip bulbs. Now, while this example might not apply to you, and you might be like, Misty, I'm never going to grow tulips. I know, but some of you may grow up to be a farmer or may grow up to work for a place like McGraw or Nutrien, and you need to do the correct fertilizer mixing, and they will give you a ratio to fertilizer with water to apply to a certain number of acres. It's a big deal that you get that right so you don't under-fertilize or over-fertilize, which would in turn kill the plant, right? So you have to be just right. So knowing your ratios actually is a good life skill and a good job skill. So how many cups of fertilizer should Marco use? Half a gallon with some soil before planting his bulbs. Draw a bar diagram. A gallon would be a half, so we need a quarts. It looks to me like we're putting it in pints. So if we need 1/2 gallon, we need it to be into a certain number of pints. Okay? So I want to know 1 gallon equals how many pints? Well, I know in our previous page that a gallon is 4 quarts, but it doesn't tell me how many pints. But it does say 1 quart is 2 pints. Okay? 1 quart equals 2 pints, and 4 quarts equals 1 gallon. And we want to know 1 gallon is how many pints. Well, if 1 quart is 2 pints, let's scratch that. 4 quarts is how many pints? Well, 1 times 4 is 4. And 2 times 4 is 8. So if 4 quarts is a gallon, then 1 gallon is 8 pints. Okay, now 1 gallon to a half a gallon is divide by 2. Watch this. This is totally not magic. 1 divided by 2 is equal to a half. Okay, so 1 divided by 2 is a half. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So we'd need 4 pints equals a half gallon. And he'd have to measure how does fertilizer in 4 pints. Let's skip all the way over to page 52, down to example 2 to the check. How many yards are 54 inches? Okie dokie. Let's try this. Meanwhile, do example 2. It's a great one, but I'm going to do this one with you. How many yards are 54 inches? Okay, so our question is, how many yards equals 54 inches? That's our question. So maybe we need to figure out, how many inches are 1 yard? How many inches? Well, from before, we know that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet, and I know that 1 foot is equal, come on pen, 12 inches. How do I get from, let me get my other color, how do I get from 1 to 3? Times by 3. So 12 times 3 is 36 inches. Okay, 1 yard is 36 inches. Well, how am I going to figure this out? Okay, 36 to 54 is kind of hard, but I can see over here I divide by 36. So I can do 54 divided by 36. No, I don't know that in my head either. 54 divide 36 is 1.5. Okay, 1.5 yards equals 54 inches. So we can write our answer here. 1.5 yards is 54 inches. Okay, that's using your conversions, which is applying rates and ratios to measurements. Good luck.